Hello everybody. In this video, we're going to look over at what microorganisms inhabit the imaginary planet of Rustaria. Unlike my other videos regarding this celestial body, this one is not a direct continuation, but rather a quick recap of what illnesses and other organisms of such have lived on this planet up until the point of my last video. But before I begin, I would like to advise you that if you like the content I generally produce, you might want to like and subscribe. With that out of the way, let's begin. The first ancestors of what we called by our own standards, bacterias, and other various microorganisms appeared, of course, during the Vantra period, that is, once it started to approach the end. They split off from their relatives Pasug, and for the first few million years, they looked practically indistinguishable. But, with the appearance of more complex living organisms, these ancient cells would make something out of it. Some of these primeval organisms decided to leech off of the ancient Palfkas, which for your own information if you haven't seen the second episode of the series were, essentially worm-like creatures, that had developed a new feature, never before seen in any other animal group before it, an exoskeleton, because of the fact, that these organisms that are yet to be named leached off from the Palfkas and the other animals of that time, we're going to assign them the name Parvasanga, which is match made between the two words small and leech in Latin. So, what exactly were their feeding habits? Well, at first, they would most times be born on and inside the creature. Well, the term born isn't really correct here, but you know what I mean. They would either lie on the skin or exoskeleton of that particular animal, or reside inside the creature itself. They would constantly consume, suck off nutrients from within the animal's body. Of course, they would regulate themselves, so their host would not perish. But upon dying, the corpse of the animal would likely be eaten and decomposed by these microorganisms. The Parvasangas would diversify within a few million years, possibly even tens of millions of years that is. One of the clades that would result from them, would function in basically the same way, however, the younger cells would be produced inside the body, so they would be in a safer, warmer and more nutritional place. As they get older, they would constantly be propelled upper and upper in the layers of skin or exoskeleton of the animal by their offspring, which would be produced asexually. In fact, they would reproduce only within the body of the animal where it is warmer, so their descendants can be born inside the animal. As they grow old and lose their reproductive capabilities and place in the ecological niche they had previously held to and inhabited, they would be put closer and closer to the animal's exterior. Once they finally reach the top layer, they would stay there for a while and consume nutrients from the oceanic waters, which would then be given to the younger layers of cells by a complex mechanism. After a while, the cell would die, because of which it would lose grip of the creature and fall off. This one, we're going to dub it complexuctus, which also comes from Latin and means a complex sucker or suction. Another branch that would split off from the Parvasangas would be way more dangerous to their hosts. They would live within the animal, and quite some time after the creature in question is given this decease, it would experience symptoms, such as, depending on the creature, could vary from having an increased temperature to vomiting, from irritation and itching to literally vomiting parts of your internal organs. In all cases, this decease would cause death. After the host dies, it would be decomposed by the parvusicer as we're going to name it. This decease could be contracted by a few ways. Those include ones such as consuming bodily fluids, such as vomit of an infected animal, predating on the host and even consuming the corpse. And when another animal contracts it, the cycle would go on and on once again. But, these microorganisms can't be spread by quote-unquote infected water or blood, because once they leave the host, that is, not counting the vomit, they would quickly perish. However, the reason why it can be spread via vomiting is, because this fluid would be very thick. But because of the ratio between the infectivity and lethality of parvusicer, it would likely move to live in the colder oceans of Rustaria in order to be preserved. However, this method would not work at 100%. And for this reason, I propose that a group of these microorganisms would adapt to survive being in water for quite some time, which would increase the infectivity rate. Because of that, the first epidemic on this planet would occur, possibly even becoming a global pandemic, which would severely impact every ecological niche because of how many animals would die. Thankfully, this event would correlate with the Uztaken mass extinction event, which for those who haven't seen the second video of my planetary series, was essentially a supernova that hit the planet of Rustaria. Because of that, not only would the sea level and global temperatures decrease dramatically, which would then also result in an ice age, causing the North and South poles to be covered in ice, humongous doses of radiation would be released, increasing the rate of mutation and overall evolution. This was most likely the reason why the Pertuck later on proceeded to develop an endoskeleton, but would also provide some benefits to the animals of this planet, like the mutation that would enable some sort of an immune system, but the Complexuctus and its descendants would also be impacted. This radiation, along with the previously named epidemic, would decrease the number of these cells, which would overall create some type of a reproductive synchronization. Once, for whatever reason, a cell, or many of them, while still being young and able to reproduce, would begin to reproduce asexually as their ancestors had previously done in the past in order to minimize the risk of the entire colony dying. However, if they are in the outer skin levels or go inside a new animal, they would begin to reproduce sexually with each other to genetically diversify the colony. If more than 2 cells are available, that is, they would likely evolve bigger as time goes on and on, but how would they really reproduce? Well, 2 neighboring cells would merge into one that is bigger, which would then either split into 2 or more, depending on the circumstances, like whether the host is starving or not. These new organisms would then later on proceed to further increase in size until they are as big as how their parenting organisms were, which would also match with when they would reach sexual maturity once again. Hey, thank you for sticking so far. If you found the video personally, which I personally really enjoyed fantasizing about and making it, you might want to check out my other videos regarding this planet. Thanks for watching.
Alleluia.